Good morning, everyone. This is Kelley Hobart from Alpaca Direct, and I'm here on Technique Tuesday. And I thought it would be fun to talk about 6 different ways that we can improve our knitting today. And it's kind of like I was thinking about, our common problems or areas in our knitting that may not look quite as lovely as we want them to, and maybe quick little fixes that we can use to make it look a little better. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And don't forget, as we go along, every week we have a prize. So for this last week, do you know what the winning color was for this last week, Jim?
It was the wild.
The Wild Child. This is our Zauberball cotton. And you can see that it's by Shopple Wool. And this, I believe, is an organic cotton. And it is super beautiful. It makes a beautiful shawl, maybe even a little tiny baby sweater. It has a good amount of yardage in here and it's lovely to knit with. Don't forget, as we're going along, to let us know where you're from. Maybe if you have a beautiful pattern that you're working on, you could share it with us. And we love to have those pattern names and the name of the designer so that we can find it. Because I know I've gotten tons of great ideas about knitting projects from all of you out there. So that's totally fantastic. And I was thinking that for this week, I would like to have the prize be regular kabasi. And if you haven't tried regular kabasi, this is a fingering weight yarn by Haiku. And it's 55% cotton, 16% bamboo, 21% elastic nylon, and 8% silk. Let me show you the back side of it so you can see how beautiful it is. If you haven't used this yarn before, it is quite a treat. I used it to make a cute little sweater for one of my dolls, right, Jim? Mm-hmm. It turned out so cute. But this can make socks or anything like that. So it's totally lovely. And then we have, we have a choice of the mint green and bright blue. And then we have the purple and I don't know what you call the different colors in it. This one's more like a purple colorway, and this is more of a bright blue colorway. And you guys, if you vote and let me know which color we should send out next week, that would be great. That way you're helping us and you're also getting entered to win a prize, right? So this is fantastic yarn too. I really like it. I've used it a lot.
You know what I noticed was that kabasi, if you hold the label up, it says short for cotton, bamboo, silk.
Yes, that's right. So, yeah. See, this is what Jim's talking about. Cotton, bamboo, silk.
Kabasi.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, but it's a great yarn. I really enjoyed working with it, and it makes cute little items that are not too hot when it's in the summertime. Here it's kind of been warm lately, although this morning we woke up to a thunderstorm. Go figure, it was cloudy outside and it was sprinkling. It's like, oh my goodness, don't tell me summer's over and we're already getting toward our wintertime. I don't know. They always say in Idaho, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes and it'll change. So totally fantastic. I actually like the different seasons here, and I really enjoy each season. Has its wonderful positive attributes. So that's totally fantastic. So what I was going to talk about is this little board that I have here. And I'm just going to give you a brief overview of it. And we're going to sit down. Oops. And I try to pin it in place. And I will go through each one of these and show you. It might fall off, Jim. What we're going to be, that's just kind of a quick look at what I'm going to be talking about today. And I will take each one down and go over it. Also, I had a couple samples to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So if you don't understand, you can see the actual problem, and then we can talk about what might be a solution. And so, sorry, Jim, I'm pushing my husband out of the way. Not on purpose. This just, we're a little in close quarters. So I wanted to show you the top of this little balaclava. You can see here these decreases right here. Do you see how they jig to the left and right, left and right, left and right? That's an SSK. And SSKs, when you do them, they look like that. And if you look on the other side, these are knit 2 togethers. And do you see how straight that is? Well, let me tell you why that happens. Let's take a look at the SSK. I have a little sample here. 1 second, Jim. And we can take a look at it. I'm trying to unpin it. I just pin it when I go to get in my car. That way it doesn't go flying and I miss all the pieces. And let's get this little thing. So what we're going to be showing today is an easy way to tidy up an SSK. And what we're going to be doing is purling the SSK through the back loop on the wrong side row, which is super easy to do. Don't mind my cords. They have a bit of memory and they're kind of tangle around circles because that's the way I store them. So I have my stitch marker here in the center telling me when to do the knit two together. This right here is the knit two together. And then right down here, it's harder to see. That's why I brought the hat. But do you see how this jogs to the left and to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right? And then all of a sudden it straightens out. That's because I purled through the back loop on the back side, the wrong side of my row, so that I could straighten that out. So when we're going, oops, do not split yarn. I'm going to 2 stitches before, and then this one's just a straight knit 2 together. Then I'm going to slip my marker, and as traditional SSK, you would slip as if to knit, slip as if to knit, hold those 2 stitches in the front with your left hand needle, and then knit it through the back loop. And here lies the problem. Because you've twisted your stitch, when you come back on the purl row and it is not twisted, that's what leaves the jog. So sometimes if I understand why things are, let me just see if I can slip that one. Also on the slip stitch edges, all I do is slip it purl wise from needle tip to needle tip, and then I will place my yarn in the proper position for the next row. Like on this sample is stockinette stitch, so I need my working yarn in the back so that on the next row I'll be purling and my working yarn will be in position to work it. You see, if I slipped it needle tip to needle tip with the yarn in front, I would not have my yarn in the working yarn in the proper position to be able to go do purling. So that's how I know where to place my yarn, is on the next row or round. What am I going to be doing, knitting or purling? And then you'll know where to place your working yarn so that you can have it in the proper position for the next row or round that you're working. So I'm going to purl here. And 1 stitch before my stitch marker is that SSK. And all you do is you reach behind and you insert that needle from behind right through the front, and then you purl it. That is all you do to straighten out that SSK so that it looks beautiful and straight like the knit 2 together. Isn't that cool, Jim? Mm-hmm. I think it's totally awesome. That was an easy, quick way to fix it. Do you see how nice it looks there? Now we're going to take a look at when we cast off what our traditional bind offs, they have kind of a sloppy edge, this last stitch. And you can fix that by doing a couple of things. But let's take a look over here and see, get right to the edge. So I'm going to just do a regular bind off and bind off 1 stitch, 2 stitches. Then I'm going to remove my stitch marker and I will bind off 1 more. And then right here, this stitch right here is this stitch on the left hand needle is the one that gets a little sloppy. So I was thinking, all you have to do is, if you notice that the yarn goes from stitch to stitch in between, you could possibly just lift that yarn up and do a knit 2 together, and that tightens that up right there. And bind that off. And then if you wanted to tighten it up again to make that even tighter, you could lift that up on the needle and then do a knit 2 together, making sure that you get underneath that strand of yarn to bind off the last stitch. And then your edge won't be as sloppy. So that's how you can prevent, but you can see it still kind of sticks up. Do you see how that does that just a little bit? It's not, I don't know, when I did this technique, it's not my absolute favorite way. Let's go back and take a look at that and see if we can fix it up a little better. So when I take the bind off out and I put my stitches back on the needle, I just put them on any old way to start with. And then I will make sure that right hand leg is in front. Okay, right hand leg is in front. There you go. All right. Now, another way we might be able to do that is, let's go all the way back till I have my working yarn.
What are you showing here?
I'm just showing them maybe another way we can get some of the slop out of that last stitch when we bind it off to make it, because they call it rabbit ears, it looks kind of funny on the edge. And so it's not, it doesn't always look that great. And some people have more problems than other. And I think it's because they're knitting more loosely, so it leaves an even looser stitch on the edge. And so, yeah, we're trying to figure out. So if you you bind off all those till this very last one, it was suggested, I saw on YouTube, someone had used this technique where they take this stitch, don't work it, move it over to the right hand needle, and put this stitch up on the needle. And then slide them both back, making sure not to split any yarn and do a knit two together. Let's take a look at it and see what it does. We'll see what it does when we get down here. That actually made it pretty nice, because when you pull this out, this will be pulled out and you'll weave it in. That actually did a fair, decent job of pulling it in. Don't you think, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was another way that you can use to get rid of these rabbit ears on the on the edge and make it look better. Also, when you're doing your projects, if a technique, and any of you out there that are part of the knit club, I do this all the time. I cast on with a needle that is 2 sizes larger. So if I had a number 9 that I was knitting, for instance, I would cast on with a number 11 and then knit right off of it. So can I just reach by you for one? I'm sorry, sweetie. I just need to grab this needle right here. So these are kind of too big of a difference, but it gives you the gist of what I'm talking about. So I would take my larger needle, and also using a slip knot. When you have a slip knot in your work, slip knots are very visible when you're going to be knitting in the round. So I like to avoid all slip knots if I can. And I don't know if you guys have watched me on when we're doing the knit clubs, but I never do a slip knot, and I do it so quickly I don't even realize that I'm not doing a slip knot. So what I do is I take my tail and just drape it right over the top of the needle, and I insert my fingers from the back and then just give that a twist. I'll show you again. Instead of a slip knot, that's what I do. Isn't that cool, Jim? Mm-hmm. And then I would go ahead, and I like this Old Norwegian cast on is one of my favorites. So I use that cast on a lot, especially with garter stitch. Old Norwegian cast on is beautiful. And so if you're going to have a garter stitch edge, you would do it that way. And then what you do is when you're done with all the stitches that you have to cast on, you would take your smaller needle that you're going to actually be knitting with, and you would go ahead and knit right off of those larger needles onto the smaller needles. Now, because this needle is so much larger, I'll show you how it creates another problem. It creates almost like a loosey-goosey cast on, which I don't know if one looks better than the other, having it pulled in a little bit or having it look too loose. Some people say they love, like a friend of mine, Debbie, she likes to cast on over 2 needles. And she makes it look lovely, but when I do it, it just looks too big. It looks kind of sloppy for me. So you have to try what works out for you. Sorry, my cord was caught. So here I am with my smaller needles, and you saw that I slipped the last stitch, and I have my working yarn in the front because when I turn my work, it's in position for me to be able to knit. And I'll show you that one more time, and we'll take a look at these slip stitch edges, and you can take a look and see what you like. It's all, a lot of knitting is personal preference, don't you think, Jim? Yeah. How you like to do stuff. But I find that if it's easier to get whatever I'm doing, if it's easier to get it done, then I'll be more likely to use it. If they're telling you to stand on your head and flip sideways to get something done, chances are I'm not going to be using that technique because I won't even remember it. I mean, I can remember the Kitchener stitch and stuff like that, but just some techniques, some hacks are so complicated you forget what the hack was. It's like, what? Yeah, and so we don't really want that. So again, on this one, because I'm going to be knitting, I'm maintaining that stockinette stitch. I'll slip that with the yarn in front. And this leaves really nice edges, and I'll show you what I mean by those edges. So, not on this one. It's on this. I just grabbed this one. Do you see the slip stitch edges on here? How nice it looks and clean. Those are nice slip stitch edges just that we make just by slipping that last stitch. And it doesn't matter if you slip the first stitch or the last stitch. You just have to slip one of the stitches. Some people really like slipping the first stitch, and some people like, I've tried all the different ways, and I found that slipping the last stitch for me looks better on my work. But you guys can try it and see what works good for you. I would say that knitting is not one size fits all. Do you think, Jim? No. And so anyway, so if we're looking for a nice way to tidy up our SSKs, purl that SSK through the back loop on the wrong side of the row. Now let's take a look at this little sample here. It is a non-slip stitch edge, meaning it was knit and stockinette stitch the whole time without slipping any stitches. And this has been highly blocked, and you can see that it likes to curl, and that inside edge actually it's not that smooth looking. It looks okay. It looks okay, especially the next stitch in, but I prefer the slip stitch edge. To me, looks better. And this one was knit cast on with a larger needle. And you can see how it's not sucked in. Whereas this one right here, let me show you this sample. This sample right here had a standard cast on with no change in needle size. And you could see how it's really kind of sucked in at the bottom. It looks like a frown. And it's not ideal. I don't like casting on with the same size needle that I'm knitting with. I like casting on with a needle that's 2 sizes smaller. And then you can see or 2 sizes larger, sorry. Yeah, so that we don't have it sucked in at the bottom. Yeah. And then this has a slip stitch edge. And what else did we do? Just a standard bind off. And I think it looks pretty good that way. Where this was the one that we had tried to fix, but you can still see there's kind of a big loop in the back. It's not perfect. It looks good from the front though. Don't you think, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can always take this loop and pull it back. If I had a darning needle, and I don't have one right here, I could show you how you can just go right in here and just pull it down in there, and it'll totally disappear. Yes, for another day. There has to be something left over for another day. But in knitting, there's always something new to learn, so we will always have another day. Because every day I learn something new. Like this last week, how to fix this SSK just by purling through the back loop and having it get straightened out, where the knit two togethers are beautiful and the SSKs are just a little tiny bit of a jog. Not too bad. This looks pretty good. And I have not blocked this really or anything, so it actually looks pretty good. But you can see on this little hat that, where is that? It's very much of a jog right here. So do you see how you can totally see it on there. So I don't know, just any little fixes that help, that are quick, that we can learn to incorporate into our daily knitting is totally fantastic. I think that's great. Let's take a look at this last one up here. It says a regular cast on. Oh, it's a cast on with the needle 2 sizes larger and a standard bind off. Here's our, it's a standard, I know, but I think I was trying to use that make ones, add a stitch, like pull the yarn tighter by adding a stitch in between on this one, and it kind of pulled it in. I'm not overly thrilled with that, but the larger cast on, and then I used a much larger needle, and you can see if it gets too large, it's very almost kind of sloppy at the bottom. I don't like it too much larger. That's why I don't like to cast on over 2 needles, because for me, it doesn't work ideally for me.
So what is that example there?
This one is a cast on with a needle that's much larger.
Okay.
And it has a standard bind off. But I know that on this one, I also tried to do a couple make ones in between these last 2 stitches, just to pull up some of the slack of the edge yarn. And it really did not make it look any better. Matter of fact, it probably doesn't look quite as good as the standard one. Standard one right there. And then this one. Do you see? I like that one better. So, you know, you kind of got to try it and see what works for you. But I don't know, that SSK. I like purling that SSK through the back loop. That is my new go-to for now, until I learn something else. So let's look and see who won the prize for this week. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Oh yes, Concentric Cotton, Wild Child. And the winner is Lori Renner Noland. Lori, yay! Look what you won. You won some nice organic cotton that is so beautiful. I love these slow color changes. I don't know, it's a rarity to find yarn like that changes colors and doesn't do it like a jag or something weird. The color changes.
That's made in Germany, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful yarn. I love this yarn. I've made a lot of projects with it. It's nice. So Lori, all you have to do is contact customer service at alpacadirect.com. And you can give us your shipping address and we can get it out in the mail to you right away. You'll enjoy working with us. It has very good yardage. And don't forget, for the rest of you out there that want to enter to win Kabasi, this is our cotton silk blend with a little bit of nylon in there. And it is wonderful. And we have the purple colorway or the blue. Yep. So you guys choose, and we can send that out in the mail next week. And also next week, I was thinking what I wanted to talk about was Christmas gifts. Thinking about Christmas gift ideas for our knitting buddies. Yes, I wanted to get that going because I don't know about any of you out there. It's always a rush right before Christmas to get everything done. And I was thinking that if we get started on it early, we will be happy campers. And so I hope all of you out there have a fantastic week, and I will see you next Tuesday.